Aha, Tom, welcome. I suspect that I know which Tom that is. I feel joy that you're here. And welcome, Lily.
Hey,
Hi.
hello.
I'm going to give a couple of minutes for people to make their way here. And yeah, while we're in this kind of before the official talk starts part, those of you who are here are going to get bonus material. And this is that hello, Tom, what I propose we do is that I will put myself in what we call impossibility management first position. And you can listen, you can do it with me, you can go get a cup of tea while this happens. So what I do to start is just sit myself nice and square on my chair. I scan my physical body, and this can take a split second. And then I put my attention on the physical center of my body, the spot that is between my hips and between the front and back of my body. And I might do that also in a split second, and I might also take my time with that and really say hello to my body and really turn up my attention and focus it on that, my physical center. And the next thing I do is I scan my field for where is my energetic body. And you might be already familiar with the kind of natural law that says that attention goes where energy goes. So my energetic body, hello, Julia,
Hello.
my energetic body can be anywhere. The energetic body is the center of the energetic body is the least stable of the 5 bodies. Possibility management has identified 5 bodies. Energetic body is the least stable, and the physical body is the most stable. So when I scan for my energetic center and my energetic body, it's a little bit like a 3-dimensional fishing net. I've put my attention over there and I haven't consciously brought it all the way back yet. And energetically, there's a lingering effect. And so what I do when I'm doing this next step in coming into first position is I scan my field for my energetic body and I start to reel it in, bring it in from the past, other places and people, from my mental body, because I give my attention to my mental body a lot, and just anything else that is kind of outside of the small here and now. I reel it in and reel it in and reel it in and reel it in, and I usually gather it somewhere around my field, usually in front of me, and then I use my intention to move this gathered ball, my energetic center, and place it on my physical center between my hips, between the front and back of my body. And I really like button it in using my intention. And this creates for me the experience of being centered. And over time, as I exercise my ability, I become more competent and often more unconsciously competent in being centered. And the next step in moving into a further degree of this first position, I use an energetic tool called the clicker to declare that I have a grounding cord. And this grounding cord is an energetic construction that connects the center of my physical and energetic body to the center of Gaia, the physical and energetic center of Gaia. And this brings about the experience of being grounded. And when I use my energetic senses to look at my grounding cord, I can notice it has a color. Today it's a kind of teal color. And I can also notice, I can take the time to kind of really notice it and notice that it is a two-way communication channel between the entity, this entity, Nicole, and Gaia, the morphogenetic, the field of planet Earth. And communication and energy can travel along that cord up and down. And this is, you know, it's one distinction. It's this vast kind of territory of discovery opens up about, you know, what is a grounding cord? What does it mean to be grounded, to be in this two-way communication with Gaia, the morphogenetic field, the word didn't quite come earlier, of planet Earth, and to be part of that morphogenetic field. The next thing I like to do to get into even deeper first position is to again use my clicker to declare that I have a personal bubble, a bubble that delineates my personal space. So my physical body is inside that bubble, as is my energetic body, my emotional body, my mental body, and my archetypal body is housed in this space. And the difference between what's inside that bubble and what's outside the bubble is that outside is everybody else. And again, as an energetic distinction, it doesn't necessarily mean that I don't have energetic parts of myself outside my bubble. In fact, I have done a lot of processes where I bring energetic parts of myself back into my bubble, and like do a kind of energetic retrieval of parts of myself that I've disconnected from. And I can also let other people's energy into my bubble. And so this bubble of space is the boundary over which these kind of energetic exchanges can happen. And again, another distinction that it's used in possibility management that opens up a huge territory about what belongs in the bubble, what belongs outside of the bubble, and how it's going and how that can transform. So grounded or centered, grounded, bubbled. This is the basics of first position that possibility managers use. I will also redeclare that there is a golden cube around our shared workspace that exists in my physical location and in each of your physical locations and is energetically connected through the physical phenomenon of the Zoom screen. So we're in this wacky shaped golden cube energy workspace that you know each of us are in, and I ground this cube also with a grounding cord, so that I mean I take great delight. It gives me ecstasy to imagine these four cubes that are each connected by the same grounding cord to the core of the earth, and here we are. And into this golden cube of workspace, I declare my bright principles. These are possibility, clarity, love, empowerment, high-level fun. And the bright principles of possibility management are in one way or another included in my bright principles, which could be said, this is how I came to be a possibility manager myself. And I welcome you to this introduction to possibility management. And the first thing I want to do, or the next thing I want to do, is to invite each of you to check in, to let your name be said in the space, and maybe say something about where you're coming from, physically and mentally, energetically, emotionally, however you wish. Just keep it to about 2 minutes or less. And also something about, why you're here, what drew you, why are you here? And anyone can go first. I won't control this.
Hi, can everyone
Hi.
hear me? Can you hear
That
me?
again? Yes.
Okay, cool. I'm here because I got a Telegram thing from a group that I just joined Telegram yesterday. So do you know Roger Metz?
Yes.
Okay, so he's a good friend of mine, and
Cool.
he sent me. I just looked at the message today, and it was like I had to go and pick my kid up from school, and it's like, oh, I can go and. I have no idea what possibility management is at all, not one tiny bit. So this is. I'm coming in blind. So my name's
Perfect.
Lily. My name's Lily, and I'm English. I live in Lethbridge. I'm actually going to take you off this earphone thing. That's better. You hear me? Yeah.
Yep.
So I'm English. I've been here in Canada in Lethbridge for it'll be 14 years next month. I used to be a teacher in England. I came here. I've got 3 kids. An ex-husband who was super good friends with. I used to be a taxi driver for 7 years, and then COVID hit, and then I had quiet. And at the beginning of COVID, I knew I needed to do something. So my side hustle for the past 10 years has been in the kink scene. I was a dominatrix. I spank people. I continue to spank people. That's been a great income and a massive part of my journey. At the beginning of COVID, I took Reiki level 1. And then so I was suddenly connected to what's up there, having spent the last 7 years barefoot in Canada. So I live 24 hours a day, 365 days a year without shoes. I actually don't own a single pair of shoes. So when I was connected to the Reiki, suddenly shit hit the fan. In the last 6 months, I've had a huge spiritual awakening. I have a Asian spirit talking through me who I've managed to calm and train, restrain. I'm just a massive conduit. I work with bodies. I work with chakras. I realized I had trauma. I was completely, I didn't know I had trauma. Didn't know what that meant. And so I've worked through that. I spent the first half of COVID trying to persuade the Western medical world to understand that prostate massage can cure illness in the sacral chakra in the prostate. I've got clients who, through prostate massage by me and their wives, have cured their prostate problems. But the Western world don't want to hear about that. Western medicine doesn't want to hear about that. That's fine, because it's not about, they're focusing on the one part, and we got to focus on all 3. So they weren't ready to listen, and I don't care anymore because they're not listening. And so you need to be speaking to the people who are listening to you and who do believe in you. I'm super ADHD. I just talk and waffle, so you need to stop me probably. Roger, I've known for 10 years. I'm new to all this. I was just I was an atheist until I did Reiki, and then in June, some weird ass shit happened, and I'm not an atheist anymore. So
Cool.
that's it.
Lily, thank
I don't
you.
know. There you go. Like I'm a strange cat, man. I'm
Perfect.
an open book.
Perfect. And welcome. And thank you for sharing all of that. And yeah, that's juicy. Thank you.
Thanks. Yeah, juicy. I love that word. Yeah, there you go. That's yeah. Any questions? You can find me on Facebook and shit.
Thank you.
I got no secrets. None now. Only my client's secrets. Confidentiality. But me, I got nothing. I own every single thing.
Thank you.
Thanks. I'm going to mute myself now.
Thanks for that. That was fun. I'll go next. My name is Julia. I first heard about possibility management through a friend and former lover who I met at the Tamara Healing Biotope in Portugal, 2016. And the following year, I was at Esalen in California at a love school retreat with the same kind of leaders from Tamara, and Clinton Callahan was there. And I guess he's the originator of possibility management, the creator, founder, whatever the name is. And we were partnered on an exercise, a partnered exercise. And I've just heard the briefest amount, like it just kind of, it's always stuck in my mind as like, I want to know more about that. And somehow I think I got a letter from you, Nicole, or I don't know how I found newsletter or something on social media, something. And I was like, cool, maybe this is my moment to learn a little bit more. I'm in my day right now. I'm just coming from sitting at my desk, and I've been editing a music video that I'm making. I'm a filmmaker and video editor. And so I'm just like kind of shifting in my digital worldscape right now. And I'm a mama. I have a 3-year-old daughter. And I'm just in a big life shift right now where I've been living in land-based community for the last many years, but in this one community the last 3 years where I also birthed my daughter, and I've been like a really core member. And then I have recently gotten sick. My husband and I got sick from mold in our house. And so I'm just going through kind of like a dark night of the soul moment where a lot of things have kind of collapsed, and there's been like very mysterious and unsettling neurological symptoms I've been going through, including like numbness in my hands and feet, and like a lot of brain fog, and a lot of like, just like kind of except for postpartum and having a child and being all transformed through that, this is like the first time that illness has kind of come into my body in a way where I've felt I need to call on some higher spiritual powers to really understand like what it's trying to teach me in this moment. And I also just moved houses, so it's been a big ordeal of shifting in my family, shifting for the first time, living as a nuclear family, which I think for most people is the opposite. Like most people are nuclear, and then living in a community is the edge. But I'm just so used to having all these people around, and now I'm in the quiet own home. So I'm just in an interesting place, also in some big moments in my career of like really ready to take it to the next level, and feeling scared in some ways, and then debilitated, like often just like really fatigued and brain foggy. So I'm curious what possibility management has. It's like, maybe I'm just like unlocking doors. Like, is this something to go into? Can there be some medicine for me here for my life right now?
Thank you, Julia.
Yeah.
Wrong button. Unmute myself. Hello, I'm Tom. I've been on a healing journey for a few years, and mostly I feel really good all the time. Today I'm feeling calm and centered and grounded. And in the past year, this journey has taken on a spiritual dimension, and discovering more meditation spaces. So in terms of possibility management, I guess mostly, Nicole, what I know is from you, and it feels like only a little tiny bit, really. So I've been wanting to learn more so I can find new directions to explore. Because other than feeling pretty good most of the time, I do feel from a certain perspective a sort of stagnation of energy and wanting to move that in a new direction. Yeah, basically, in a nutshell.
Thank you. Great. Wow. Thank all of you. I get this clarity that each of you in your own way, given what you've shared here so far today, my sense is that you are possibility managers. And maybe that's a lowercase p, lowercase m, like you manage possibilities. It sounds like you've each been creating possibilities. You've each, by the sounds of it, had to at least unconsciously learn to unconsciously destroy possibilities, kill them, so that your journeys through life have taken some pretty interesting forms. Yep, I see you, Lily. Thank you. Goodbye for now. And yeah, it's very cool to hear the range of exposure so far to possibility management from Julia, who spent time with Clinton and has been in a participation space with him, to Lily, who was brand new, like today, first exposure, and then Tom a little bit in between in terms of exposure through me. I feel so much joy about this. So what is possibility management? Oh my gosh, wow. It's such a vast territory again, and it's still a discovery for me. How do I define possibility management? How do I discern the parts of, in a way it came to me that possibility management also has 5 bodies. And it has there's the physical part of possibility management that lives in the people who have been using and practicing and studying possibility management. It lives in each of us. It also exists in the form of books written, many books written by Clinton Callahan, including one called Directing the Power of Conscious Feelings. And before this call, I was in a study group where, for the second time through reading this book, I've been holding space for a study group to read this extraordinary book that is, before I started reading possibility management books, I'd kind of hit this lull when it came to what I wanted to read in the world. I just couldn't seem to find a book where I was compelled, like I was really wanted to read every word in every page in the book. I've been having that happen for a number of months and even some years before I encountered Clinton's books. And now I have this massive list of books on my to read list that come from the recommended reading list from possibility management, some certain different training kind of game worlds within the possibility management game world. So possibility management has this physical body. It also has, in a way it's physical, a digital body. Possibility management has been, I call it translated into a massive multiplayer on and offline game called Start Over XYZ. And I had the great honor of being one of the experiment writers for this game for several months, December of last year to July. And this is a very, very juicy time for me. And now I've been replaced in that role, and this is beautiful and extraordinary. I have lots else to do. And my archetypal lineage, which is something we talk about as possibility managers, as a sense of like what our destiny is, what we're made for. My archetypal lineage is doing work through me. It's not me necessarily doing the work, but it looks like it is. And my archetypal lineage is as a transformational experiment creator and catalyst for Team Gaia. For Team Gaia, with Team Gaia. You decide if you're on Team Gaia. I have the suspicion that each of you probably are. And this identity, this shift, these distinctions as to what I am, why I'm here, how it goes, have been empowered to an nth degree by the distinctions, tools, maps, and processes of possibility management, and by my participation in the possibility management game world. So, this physical digital body that possibility management has starts to, like take shape. And then as I consider this is a brand new experiment for me today, to consider the bodies of possibility management. But the next body, like the intellectual body of possibility management, exists as this kind of intellectual theory world that's expressed in the Start Over XYZ game, that's written in the books, that's talked out of the mouths of possibility managers all over the world. It is a set of distinctions that start with a mental quality. And then as we study and experiment and use the tools of possibility management to bring these distinctions more deeply through our intellectual body into the other levels of our other bodies, we start to be able to live in and handle our lives in ways that create extraordinarily different results from the results that I personally have been getting, and I see this in the possibility managers that I work with ongoingly. And this is part of why I'm here today, to give this talk, to record this, to send out more information about possibility management, so that more humans on this planet can get the distinctions, pick up the tools, start using them, learn the maps, start to follow the maps, experiment with the maps, and go through the processes that empower evolution, transformation for, as far as I can tell, the whole morphogenetic field of Gaia, including individual humans on it. And I can't think of anything that the world needs more than this. So I'm committed, and I am on the team, and I am expanding the team and looking for more players for the game and experiment partners, collaborators, especially people who already use possibility management, because this gives us a type of common, not just language. And I've over the last 2 years, when I really started using possibility management a lot more than I ever had before, one of the kind of complaints that I hear over and over is that it's full of jargon. And what I've come to kind of notice is that jargon can be a word that a part of us uses to describe things that we kind of are frustrated by when it comes to language. Possibility management, and in the possibility management game world, and possibility managers use a lot of terms for distinctions, and terms and distinctions becomes kind of synonymous in order to talk about and work with things that modern culture just doesn't concern itself with. One such distinction, for example, is the gremlin. Now, the gremlin in other game worlds might be identified as like the ego, or the trickster, or coyote, or my badass side, or the devil on my shoulder. But worked with this distinction, gremlin. Possibility managers have been experimenting with the distinction of gremlin for quite a number of years, and there are even more distinctions about this part of ourself that humans seem to have. It's an energetic, the active part of ourself that, when it's unconscious, is the part that stops us from feeling, that stops us from taking responsibility, that wants to avoid feeling, avoid responsibility, avoid expansion, and in a sense protects our box, our box, you know what I'm talking about, from expanding. Gremlin is not bad, it is not wrong. But having an unconscious gremlin has certain consequences. Training your gremlin, making a distinction, this is my gremlin, this is not my gremlin, these are my other parts, they have other consequences that tend to be more empowering and usually more the consequences people are going for. So this is an example of one distinction that about June this year, I made this declaration, or my gremlin really made this, my unconscious gremlin made the declaration to the world that I would not work with people who didn't have the distinction gremlin anymore. It's just created too many messes when people's unconscious gremlins were throwing hooks and protecting their box and turning me into a persecutor or a victim or a rescuer. And these were not roles that I wanted to play anymore. So it's a little taste of one of the, for me, the key distinctions in possibility management. Possibility management has many, many, many key distinctions. And these are being documented in an ever-evolving online document called the Distinctionary. And I'm writing that down right now as something to send to each of you, a link to the Distinctionary, so that you can look at it if you want to use it, if you want to study it, if you want to. There have been people who have set up study groups to study the Distinctionary with others who are interested in growing what we call in possibility management matrix, which is really, matrix is a word that is used to describe how distinctions in a person's being become what their consciousness is draped over. So the more distinctions you have, the more consciousness you have, the more able you are to handle life in more responsible ways. I'm going to pause there, and I want to hear from you anything that you would like to share about what you think or how you feel, or both, from what you've heard so far, and especially any questions that have come up.
My question for you is, what someone does or doesn't distinguish their gremlin?
Julia, can you repeat that? Because something happened with your sound, it got interrupted.
Oh, yeah. You said you no longer want to work with people who can or can't distinguish their gremlin. Like, how does that occur for you? How do you notice when somebody has that ability or not?
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you. How to distinguish. I'm going to take that question and write it down, and then ask if anyone else has a question also at this point.
Hi. I'm still a little bit lost, so I'm just going to keep listening.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Lily.
I'm reading the website as well here, on and off.
You might find that
I'm okay with being lost.
Yeah, cool. Thank you. And you might just you might find that focusing on one or the other might work better than splitting your attention between the two.
I can do the two. I'm only looking at the big things in bold.
Yeah, you can choose, yeah.
Yeah, I'm interested in making distinctions between the words used by possibility management and words that I may already be using to describe the same sorts of things.
Mm.
So when in possibility management, the word gremlin is used, for me, this translates as ego and all of the associations that I've learned in connection to ego. So when I hear my own radical responsibility rising, for me, it's in context of the ego and the unsupportive nature of it, because the ego doesn't really understand what's best for us necessarily. It's a protection mechanism.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
that's an initial understanding from a different perspective for me.
Yeah, great. Yeah, thank you.
You
Yeah,
said about game.
mm-hmm.
What do you mean by that? Do you mean the game of life?
Okay,
Or is
great,
it
thank you.
a computer game? Like, I had to take a call there, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, perfect. Thank you.
I've come right in from absolutely knowing nothing, so that
Yeah.
is very, maybe it's everyone knows it, but I didn't know what you meant by game.
Thank you. Perfect. All right, so where I'll dive in there is, yeah, I'll start with the game. Absolutely. And recently I was on a call with the New and Ancient Story community, which is originated by Charles Eisenstein and his wife Patsy. And they're doing a lot about this game of life. And I don't know if any of you have encountered the game of life, like capital GOL. But this is a distinction that we use also in possibility management, though we tend to use the distinction of experimenter uh, rather than game player. And this shifts a few things, has shifted a few things for me in regard to how I engage with what I might call the game of life, what I might call the experiment of life, and more specifically in possibility management, the game that I'm often talking about is the Start Over XYZ game, which is a translation of possibility management into a digital space that is essentially made of something like right now 500 websites that deliver the distinctions, tools, maps, and processes of possibility management in theory. And also each website, most of the websites include 10 to sometimes like 100 experiments that people can do in order to have the distinctions land and build matrix in your energetic bodies and mental bodies and become more of it, so that the tools become more of a toolkit that you can consciously use and even shift into unconscious competence so that you can competently use them without even having to almost make a choice about it. It's becomes your your thoughtware just kicks in and you're using the tools without having to think much about it. So that's a bit about the game part. And the Start Over XYZ game, it's on and offline. You engage with the theory and with some experiments online. You can also enter online spaces, watch videos, talks. There's so much digital content, but it also is an in-person offline game, and people all over the world are playing it together. Gremlin, yeah, Gremlin is a huge distinction, and it is it is it is part of what is called in other game worlds ego. Possibility management makes finer distinctions around what's kind of ego is kind of a big umbrella, And I used to find this actually super annoying, that people would say, oh, my ego. And I'd be like, what part of your ego are you talking about? What are you talking about when you say ego? Can you be more clear? Can you be more distinct about the parts of us that we would identify as ego? One of the first points of radical knowledge that's delivered from possibility management says, you have a box. You are not your box. Neither are they. Everyone has a box. And the box is kind of, in a way, the dead part of the ego. It's the mechanical part. It's the crystal hard, very difficult to get to change kind of structures that we mentally, emotionally, behaviorally live in. It includes things like your beliefs, your opinions, your identity, your personality, your unconscious behavior patterns. Even your conscious behavior patterns are part of your box. And the gremlin is like this alive and active part of what might be called, yes, the ego, that protects your box. When it is doing that and you're unconscious of your gremlin, that you have one, how it works, what its strategies are, what its, superpowers are, the gremlin can take over, and I can look like I am making adult choices, and it's actually my gremlin. And you might have noticed that this happened in your life before, where it's like there's kind of this other part of you that's like, holy shit, I can't handle what I'm saying. I don't really want to be saying with this, but this kind of monster has taken over, and it's making a mess in your relationships, in your life, maybe in your career, maybe in your family, and then you kind of, this other part of you, this more being part, wakes up later and is like, oh my God, what did I do? So your gremlin is taken over. What becomes possible after however long of discerning, noticing, making the distinction between box, being, self, and different parts of the self, and gremlin, what becomes possible is that I can have my gremlin, know my gremlin, be in a partnered collaboration with my gremlin as a source of nonlinear possibility, of lightning quickness, of, my gremlin can do things that my box won't let me do. And so I can use my gremlin to actually inform my being, so that my being can do things and say things that my box is like freaking out about. So this is, something about breaking the ego down into these distinct parts: the box, the gremlin. And possibility management goes further, or brings more distinction to that, by also talking about the gremlin as an ego state, a set of behaviors and attitudes that is distinct from the child ego state, and from like a demon ego state and a parent ego state, and the adult ego state that kind of grows up out of the space from which these other ego states are being decontaminated, until the archetypal ego state is kind of fills out that space. To Julia's question about how to distinguish gremlin, I've been training my gremlin, so distinguishing my gremlin, and then giving my gremlin the job, the conscious job, of noticing other people's gremlins. And this is one of the superpowers a gremlin has. You each probably have this ability. Your gremlin is probably unconsciously scanning other people for their gremlins already. And so much of this is just about making the unconscious conscious. And again, kind of developing the competence of using skills and going around this loop of like noticing the lack of competence, exercising skills, practicing until an incompetence becomes a competence, and then until then a conscious competence becomes an unconscious, or a conscious competence becomes an unconscious competence. And this is an example of one of the maps, one of the, again, hundreds if not thousands of maps in possibility management that are sometimes show up in other game worlds that possibility managers have worked with and used and added clarity to, so added distinctions to over the years. Clinton Callahan, who Julia met back in, what was it, 2016 or something, in Esalen, he originated possibility management in 1975 with the first possibility team, which is a group of friends that he called together and some people he didn't know, who started to meet to use each other as guinea pigs, use ourselves as guinea pigs. I mean, I wasn't there. I was 5 years old, but who created these experimental spaces in order to figure out for ourselves, and this is, you know, the loose R, possibility managers get together to do these experiments in order to expand our boxes, to increase our capacity and ability to use our matrix to take radical responsibility in more and more ways. Radical responsibility is the context of possibility management. Context is another word that a lot of people in modern culture kind of use loosely and maybe don't even know what they're talking about when they do use it. And the shift of context is really kind of the basis of this possibility where modern culture starts to kind of be acknowledged and engaged with as an obsolete game world.
Can you say more about that last line?
Can you repeat the line you mean?
You said the shift in context, something has to do with the society we're in.
Yeah. So it turns out that modern culture, the context of modern culture is actually not consciously stated anywhere. There's not a codex for modern culture. Yeah, there are laws, there are memes, there are places where the rules are more clear and less clear. Of course, modern culture is made up of a whole bunch of different game worlds. But as a game world, modern culture is contexted in child to adolescent to adult level responsibility. At worst, what this means is there's a lot of people making a lot of messes that are not getting cleaned up. Has anyone here noticed that? Yeah. At best, adult responsibility means that there are people who are making agreements with each other that they will clean up this mess if they get paid, or they will clean up this mess if they get, you know, some kind of return, some kind of fair return. You know, I'll do this mess cleaning up work if I get reputation or status, or if you love me, or if you give me accolades, if you give me money, or if you give me a place to live or a boat to sail around on, I will do this adult level responsible work. Possibility management and next culture are contexted in radical responsibility. Now, even this shift from the old map of responsibility to a new map of responsibility is as significant or complex a shift as you could imagine the implications of shifting from a flat Earth map to a spherical Earth map. In a lot of ways, shifting from a flat Earth map to a spherical world map didn't change a lot. I mean, I live on a flat Earth. I've been living on a flat earth since August 20th when I came back from Europe. If the flat earth was the only map, I would be fine. I mean, I guess in a way I engage in a not flat earth because I talk to people in different time zones. So this is like one application of how I use a spherical earth map. But the possibilities that started to exist for humans when the human collective shifted from a flat earth map to a spherical earth map were pretty significant. You know, now people could sail on boats and not be scared of falling off the edge of the world. So this shift from old maps to new maps is happening all over in the possibility management game world. There are many new maps coming into existence. The old, new, and old maps are being, distinctions are being added to them all the time, so they are evolving. And this, in a way, this is what makes possibility management so fun for me, because I'm a real mind map kind of person, and I love playing with maps. And even the maps that I've been engaging with a long time, they're still evolving in my mind, and I'm evolving with them as a person who carries maps to deliver to other people so that they can experiment with them too. So yeah, this is some about context. One of the things that's said over and over is unless you have clarity about the context of the game world in which you're playing, you are a pawn in that game world. And I think this is especially evident when it comes to modern culture. Another word to describe modern culture might be patriarchy. And, you know, who here has that kind of sense that, you know, because the context of patriarchy is so unclear, so kind of shifty and unconscious, that playing in the game world of modern culture, you can't really help but be a pawn in that game world. Yeah, I see some nodding heads. Yeah. So the tools, distinctions, maps, and processes of possibility management empower the people using them to create new game worlds with clear, conscious codexes, context, in the context of radical responsibility. This, I believe, and this is really just my opinion, but I believe that the more people who are using the tools of possibility management, the more empowered humans everywhere will be to create a new culture on Earth. A culture that I call next culture, new culture. The distinction that possibility managers have created to name this culture is archearchy. In archearchy, archetypal men and women are taking radical responsibility to create together in collaboration. Radical collaboration. Another massive tool that's used by possibility managers is something called an emotional healing process. And an emotional healing process is a form of authentic adult initiation. It takes somebody through, or it empowers somebody to go through a shift of shape from whatever shape your box is, and boxes aren't necessarily cubular. The box goes liquid in all or some bodies, and it can change shape such that the person, when they on the other side of an emotional healing process or this initiation process, is able to take more radical responsibility than before the process. And part of my archetypal lineage is to create more spaces where emotional healing processes can happen, which kind of inherently requires, on one side, people to have the skill and capacity to hold space while someone else goes through an emotional healing process. It also requires the person who's going to go through the emotional healing process to have the skill and capacity to go liquid, to inner navigate their 5 bodies, to find whatever it is that's kind of keeping them in their box, and essentially update their thoughtware and process the emotions that they're carrying around that have they have been glued in by the emotions. So there's this interplay between mimetics and emotions that kind of creates this hardness in the box, and emotional healing processes make it possible for that to go liquid and for change, for transformation to happen. I'm going to pause again there and ask again if there are any questions, or if anyone wants to share any feelings or thoughts that have come up from hearing what I've been sharing about.
I get curious about the emotional healing process and what that looks like. And I also think I missed maybe the first couple of minutes when you talked about the 5 bodies. So I got that there's an energetic body and a physical body. And then I'm not sure if digital body is part of that, but maybe you can refresh what the 5 bodies are.
Yeah, sure. And this is another website that I can include in the mail out that I send afterward. The 5 bodies: physical, mental, energetic, emotional, and archetypal. Yeah, and where the digital part came in was in this kind of new territory I was exploring, like fresh off the press right now, that in a way, part of the physical body of the possibility management game world includes this digital space. Even though it is arguably not physical, it requires, the hardware is physical, and the software is maybe a little bit more intellectual, energetic. And I can also send the website about emotional healing processes. And and even as I say that, I start to feel some fear about just adding so much to the reading list from this talk that it's overwhelming. And I can just let that go, because you're adults. You can read to your heart's content. You can also be in touch anytime to ask questions that arise from what you read. And some of my fear too comes from, this so far, it's been an hour. It's been a pretty heady space. Hey, like, it's been a lot of intellectual delivery from me, and this is not my favorite way to go. My favorite way to have, especially an online call, is to do some context setting and then to dive into experiments. And I do this in most, if not all, of the series that I offer. We do usually a check-in, report in how our experiments are going since last time, set some context, and then experiment together. And then before the end of the call, create more experiments to do between calls. And after, whatever the series is, if it's one that ends, to continue for next steps. And And so typically in a talk, I like to set context around a very concise, precise topic, and then start experimenting. So yeah, so I'm at a bit of a intellectual, energetic crossroads about, are we going to keep doing this mental delivery stuff or go into some experimenting? And I can't quite tell yet.
I just need a minute to go to the bathroom. I'll be right back.
And maybe I'll just talk about some of the other like core skills that possibility managers are pretty much like using all the time, or tools. One of them is something that Clinton called a beep book. So the experiment of carrying a beep book is this one has a picture on. Usually my beep books are thicker and plainer. But when I needed a new beep book, this is the one I found at the thrift shop. And it's basically a small book that is on me at all times. I've even started taking it to the bathroom with me because I never know when something will happen that I want to capture. And a pen. And beep is a word that comes from several of the maps that we use in possibility management that basically is like stop. It's a big part of the map of feedback. In the map of feedback, it says, life is, the universe is a big feedback machine. And some of the feedback the universe gives is go, keep going, go, go, go. And sometimes the feedback the universe gives is beep, stop, wait, this isn't working. And the beep book is a place to capture your beeps so that then you can go again. One of the tricky parts about beeps is that often a beep will send us into the swamp because our gremlins will be like, oh, that beep means you're bad, you're wrong, you suck, the mess is too big. Our gremlins can do a lot with beeps, which is another reason that it really works to gain the distinction, train your gremlin, and be able to take the beep, say thank you for your feedback, and go and apply the information that the beep has in it to your next experiment or to a fresh start. So that's beep books. Amazing tool. It goes along with another little saying that happens, that if you don't write it down, it didn't happen. And I found this long before I encountered possibility management, this phenomenon that a whole bunch of really extraordinary stuff could happen, say in a conversation, and some incredible like agreements could be made. And if we didn't write it down, like the next day we're like, what did we even decide? Has anyone had that? Yeah.
I'd be interested in doing the experiments or whatever it is that you said, or games or something.
Yeah, cool.
Like, I've got time.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, how about I let my archetypal lineage do its work through me of creating an experiment for us to try here and now.
It feels like this is all really, for me, it feels like this is like a concise business version of what I've just done the last 12 months of my life, like discovering trauma, my coping mechanisms, figuring out my purpose, and nurturing the connection and realizing that we are all one, and therefore, like, we have to work together and we have to love each other. And then it feels like this possibility management thing is just like like using alternative words for what I've just done, but on a website with other people. Is that right? It feels like I don't know, a framework to find out our true purpose and then to follow through with it. Is that what it is?
I would say yes, and I would say that I'm 51 years old, and since I was 14, I have been searching for all kinds of things about purpose, about self-awareness, about how to create what I wanted instead of, creating what I didn't want, how to get out of loops. And I've been aware from a young age that I had, like some of it had to do with my emotions, my feelings, some of it had to do with my mindset, some of it had to do with my parents and my childhood and growing up how I grew up. And as the decades have gone by, I've visited like a countless number of game worlds. I've experimented with modalities, I've read books, I've had teachers, I've gone to, I don't even know how many workshops, retreats, courses, classes about this topic. And I've taken it really, really seriously at times. I've been, it's been my life's work interwoven between raising 4 children, the relationships with their fathers, going in and out of corporate workspaces. And yes, all of this is woven in as part of possibility management. I have never so far in my life encountered a kind of toolkit that has brought so much empowerment to everything I'm doing and has exponentially increased the curve for me. Possibility managers, like, we talk about how the evolution of consciousness is our hobby. And for some of us, it's also, it's our life, and it's also how we, get the money to buy the thing, whatever it is that we need.
So is possibility management like a type of life coaching?
No.
And take part of, and then like it feels like that. Like like elements are to help us find flow in certain areas.
Yeah. There is a specialty that some possibility managers have, which is called possibility coaching.
Okay.
It is not life coaching, because what life coaches do and what possibility coaches do is just it's different. And there are also, pardon?
Like consciousness coaching.
Yeah,
Maybe.
and and I would say there are a lot of different kinds of consciousness coaching also. Yeah. And some of the people who do consciousness coaching or life coaching probably have a bright principle of possibility that works through them.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you for that. So an experiment. Yeah, the one that comes to mind is to experiment a bit with something about identity shift. One of the tools of a possibility manager, is to consciously shift identity. And who here has had the experience where, say, you're out and about with someone or you're visiting with someone and their phone rings and they take the call, and right in front of your eyes they shift their identity. The person you were talking to is not there anymore. They've shifted and they're being somebody else. Has anyone had this experience?
They're wearing a different hat.
Yeah. And it's super obvious often to someone watching. Who here is super clear that this is something that you do also? You shift identity when you get on the phone. Yeah. And often this is unconscious. You know, if your friend hangs up and you're like, where did you go? They might be like, what are you talking about? I was right here. But if you like, wow, like you shifted identity, they might be like, no, I didn't. What are you talking about? That would probably be their gremlin. Or they might be like, oh my gosh, wow, thank you. Yeah, you noticed that. It happened. How many people, how many of you have had someone be like, you weren't yourself when you did that? Has anyone had anyone say anything like that to them? Yeah. And how many people like remember that like your gremlin came up and you're like, what do you mean I wasn't myself? Of course I was myself. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've had that many times where my gremlin's like, no, I'm me. Maybe this is my box talking in a way. So often, uh, often the first experiments when we're kind of building matrix in a certain area have to do with just noticing. And experiments that we could kind of do from here would be to get in groups of two and have a conversation just while we're noticing what happens with our identity if we shift. And someone says, oh, tell me about your travels, and then we shift into the identity of like global citizen, where we tell about all our international adventures and all the places we've been, and we know exactly how many countries it is, and our favorite like Airbnbs or cafes in different cities. Who has that identity of like global traveler, savvy? Yeah, cool. An identity that I mentioned earlier is to shift into this identity of experimenter. And maybe this is maybe more like right here, right now, experiment that we could do together. And the experiment is to just notice that you are already an experimenter. Maybe you haven't labeled yourself or called yourself or identified yourself as an experimenter before. But one way of looking at life is just as a series of experiments. Does anyone already have that kind of identity, like life as research or something like that? Yeah. So the experiment is that I'm going to get us to do is I'm going to set a timer.
I have to take my kid to school. I just realized what the time is.
Okay, yeah, no problem, Lily.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Send me some info.
Yeah, I'm not clear how to get in touch with you, but if you can get me in touch with.
Oh, I've got your website. So
okay, perfect. So get in touch with me, and I can send you the recording, and you can see what you missed.
Oh no, I don't need a recording.
Okay, cool.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
nice
bye.
Julia.
So I'm going to set an alarm I'm going to set it for 4 minutes. And your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to write down the different experiments that you have going on in your life. Are there any questions about that before you start?
Right now?
Yeah. What are your current experiments? Okay. Any more questions? Okay, go. 4 minutes. And stop. Cool. Does anyone want to share about what you noticed from writing that list?
Something to think about. What I'm noticing from writing the list would be greater clarity about the observations themselves. But the list itself is a series of questions that I've been asking myself. Yeah. So writing it down, good to get greater clarity about it.
Cool, thank you.
I noticed that like I anyway have this approach to my life oftentimes where it's like, oh, this is research, and at the same time I can forget that and then just be in the like, well, especially with having a young child and kind of the requirement of like kind of the mundanity of what's required to kind of keep things on track, kind of forgetting that it's research. And so in a way, just like I'm writing down like balancing my full workload with mothering. Oh, it's an experiment. Like, what's that like? And just kind of getting to that place of curiosity with it rather than the sometimes feeling like burdened or tired with the things I've chosen in my life.
Cool. Can you say more about the difference, and again, this is a distinction between having the conscious awareness of being an experimenter compared to when you forget?
Can I say more about that? Yeah, well, it's like, so recently I was in a community meeting. We have them every week where it's like, my friend was facilitating, and like a lot of the times these community meetings end up like feeling quite tense because there's these issues that we have to work out and like finances and community. And, you know, I mentioned earlier, I just left that community, but I'm still connected. So anyway, my friend was facilitating and there was something that was kind of tense or controversial that was brought onto the agenda. And it was like clearly not going to get resolved in that moment. And she just goes like, hot topic, and kind of named it for what it is. And in a way brought this levity. And I reference that because it's interesting to sometimes needing to find someone else doing that. That kind of, I think to label something as an experiment or to hold it in the frame or the context of an experiment, or, you know, I reference that hot topic moment as like, yeah, there's so many unknowns in every moment. And there are just ways that like what I can control is how I show up within it. Like I can't control all the other variables of what life brings. And so I have for years had a practice of like how to be with the sensations of a particular moment, how to be with oh, look at that feeling coming through and not totally identifying with it. Easier said than done. But so I guess on a meta level, the looking at the life things that I'm doing and then seeing them as experiments, like, I guess allow me a little bit to like disidentify a little bit and see it from a little bit of a zoomed out perspective, if that makes sense.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
That's my long-winded answer.
What I noticed about doing this particular experiment today is that even though I have this, I made this identity shift and I still forget. I do forget. And I discovered, wow, I have all these experiments going on that I haven't had that conscious awareness of myself as an experimenter doing this experiment. And yeah, the writing the list brought me also clarity about, wow, I have a lot of experiments going on. And this reminded me of this distinction between the identity of experimenter as distinct from when I'm forgetting, that I have like somehow more space when I'm remembering that I'm an experimenter and remembering that something I'm up to is an experiment. I have more space to like make mistakes, get it wrong. It's an experiment. I'm learning. I'm growing. I'm not expecting myself to get it perfectly. And there's more room for that feedback that the universe and other people will give. It's like, here's information and data to apply to your experiment so that you can like redesign it to go where you really want it to go. Yeah, and it also reminded me of some of the conscious experiments I've chosen that have been like, I have a few that are year-long or lifelong. And it kind of twigged me to be like, oh, where am I at in that experiment? I haven't really checked in with the part of me that is holding space for that experiment in particular. So I want to take this list and just sit down with it a little longer and also maybe bring some more clarity to each of the experiments. And to close this experiment, I offer these possibilities for you also to sit with that list and create a next experiment out of the information, the data, the the discovery that even just this very short, like write for 4 minutes and then share about what it was like to write experiment that happened. And I can also include the Become an Experimenter website in the notes from this call, which we just have 3 more minutes in. So I want to, express my thanks to you and kind of reiterate that I'm available anytime to be reached out to. I'll include in the mail out after this call the link to my Calendly booking app, which is a super easy way to find out when I have time so that you can know when we both have time. And at any time you can book yourself in for a 30-minute call and we can touch in. At any time you can also book yourself in for a 90-minute call for possibility coaching or emotional healing process. And that would be a paid call on a sliding scale of 80 to 110. Or in a 30-minute call, we can talk about other forms of currency, because in my game world, I do a lot of currency conversions into other things that are valuable to me. And I love talking about that.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Nicole.
Yeah, it was a pleasure to get to dive a little bit deeper into this world.
That was a fun experiment. I look forward to doing more.
Yay.
All right, well, have a beautiful day.
Thank you. And you.
Bye.
Goodbye. If you are watching the recording of this call, the offer applies also to you to reach out anytime for a 30-minute call or a 90-minute call. And I will, in the notes below this video, I will include the websites that were referenced in the call, as well as my own website and possibilities for how you can be empowered by my work and empower my work if you so choose. Thank you very much. Goodbye for now.